Hi everybody, I'm Jennifer Rovet and thanks for joining me today. I am a certified professional retirement coach and owner of Retire Ready Canada, my retirement coaching business. Recently, I was invited to participate in a live webinar with Open Access Ltd here in Toronto. Open Access is a group RRSP provider, and what they do is provide retirement financial solutions to their members. So in addition to the financial information that they provide, they wanted to also share with their members the emotional aspects of retirement and what that means and how to deal with the emotional aspects of retirement and why it's so important for anyone who's starting to transition into their retirement, or maybe for anyone who's already in retirement. So we had a great conversation, myself and Sarah Campbell, the marketing manager, and I wanted to share it with you. So without further ado, sit back, listen, watch, and enjoy. Thanks so much. Bye-bye.
So hello and welcome to today's webinar on the emotional aspects of retirement. I'm Sarah Campbell, Marketing Communications Manager at Open Access, and today I'm joined by Jennifer Rovet from Retire Ready Canada. Jennifer is a certified professional retirement coach, and she works with retirees as they transition to retirement from their traditional work life. She has a degree in psychology from McGill University, a human resources post-grad certificate, and she received her retirement coaching designation through the Retirement Project. Thank you so much, Jennifer, for being with us today.
Thank you for having me. I'm really excited.
Yeah, we're really excited to have you here. So Jennifer is going to go through and answer many commonly asked questions about preparing emotionally for retirement. Please post any questions you might have as well in the chat, and we'll try to answer as many of them as we can. Keep in mind that for this particular webinar, we won't be answering questions related to other aspects of your open access plan, but you can direct off-topic questions to inquiry@openaccessltd.com. So just to start off, Jennifer, can you tell us a little bit about what a retirement coach does and why you decided to become one?
Sure. So a retirement coach works with clients who are thinking about planning for transitioning into their retirement. So as a coach, I would work with individuals one-on-one or even couples who might need the coaching aspect to figure things out together. So as a coach, I would work with them and provide them with tools and resources that they can use. And I ask lots of questions, and we go through many different aspects of their life at the moment and where they want to be once they reach retirement. So with these tools and resources, it lets them think about retirement in a different way and start putting a plan into place so that they'll have a good transition into the retirement years.
Fantastic. Yeah.
And I decided to become a retirement coach as I have the opportunity to work with a lot of retirees in my life, and I've spoken to many, and over the years I've heard time and time again these same sorts of words coming from these people. I started hearing things like, I have no meaning in my life anymore. I don't know what to do with my time. I'm bored. I've lost my identity. So I just kept hearing these same words over and over again. And I just thought, there's a real need now, especially as baby boomers are transitioning and approaching their retirement. There's a real need to help these people, not just with the financial, because traditional retirement planning has always focused on the financial aspects, but people need to start thinking about the emotional, the mental, the physical, social side of it as well. So that's where I really want to help these people. I have a passion for it, and I find retirement fascinating as a subject. So that's how I started thinking about it and looking into different programs that I could take to get certified as a coach. And that's where I am now in my own journey as a retirement coach.
Oh, great. I know it's a conversation that has to happen more because I feel like so much of it is focused on the financial side right now, and it's much, much more than that.
Yeah.
You're still a human being that has needs, that needs to be social, that needs to fulfill certain needs in your life. So
Absolutely.
all of that's really important. So we all know retiring is a major life challenge. What do you think is the biggest emotional challenge retirees often face when transitioning to life after work?
Well, that's a great question, and certainly retirement is a major life change. I think the biggest emotional challenge that retirees face is really what are they going to do now? Well, how are they going to fill their time? So, imagine that you've had a career for 30, 40 years and you've had your daily routine. You wake up, you get ready, you have breakfast, you might read the news on your tablet or phone or old school on the paper. I don't know.
Yeah.
You go off to work every day and, you fill your days like interacting with people all day, going to meetings, making important decisions, coming home, spending time with your family, your kids, going to their activities. Life's busy. And then fast forward, now you're retired. You don't have to wake up to an alarm clock every day. So the main challenge for so many people is, what am I going to do now? I don't have to do this job now. I have all this free time now. How am I going to fill my days and my weeks so that I still have structure in my life and still have that meaning and purpose?
Yeah, that structure is so important.
Really, really is.
Just even having that day planner where you just flip to the page, you know what's going on that day, and you're not just waking up and kind of letting the TV or the news dictate what's going on for you.
The other thing to keep in mind too is people are living much healthier and longer lives now than ever before. On average, people are living about 20 years past the age of 65. So that means there's a lot of years and time that you have to fill in your life so that you still have that meaning and purpose and enjoyment in your life. Like, as you said, you just can't sit and watch TV all day. It's unhealthy and can lead to many different diseases, and it's not practical just to do that. So it's important for people to start thinking about what they want to do in their time.
It's almost like a whole second phase of your life where you can pursue passions, you can do things that maybe you couldn't do before because you didn't have the time to, but that are incredibly important to you.
Absolutely.
So it's using that opportunity that you have instead of just watching Netflix, which is awesome, but still. So how much of an impact do you think financial readiness has on emotional well-being?
So it has a lot, obviously. We all know that to have a successful retirement and a happy retirement, you have to be financially ready. And if you are, it will have an impact on your emotional well-being. And if you're not, it's also going to have an effect on your emotional well-being. So I'll take the example, if you feel you're not financially ready, it'll start to cause stress and anxiety in your life, and you'll feel like you won't have a good retirement, or you may feel that you're not ready to retire. So, just having that financial plan in place, having a strong financial plan and budget in place will definitely be better on the whole emotional aspect of retirement as well.
Where you know what you can spend, you know you can go out for restaurants, you can travel, you can do all those things instead of just hoping that you have enough, and that's pretty much it. So for a savings perspective, there's obviously many things individuals can do to better prepare financially. On the emotional side though, what would you recommend those individuals do to deal with these financial concerns?
So as always, people should be working with their financial advisor to have that financial plan in place. A financial advisor will help you figure out your budget, your retired income, so then you're able to know how much money you have so that you're able to do all those things that you want to do in retirement. You'll know the cost of, if this costs this much, I want to take a big trip, for example. Your financial advisor will work that into your budget so that you have that in place. And then from the emotional side, you'll just be better prepared for, as things come up in your life once you hit retirement.
Yeah, and even budgeting and using calculator tools, a lot of the stuff we'll be rolling out soon at Open Access a lot of that stuff will just allow you to have a greater sense of how much you really should be saving so that you can have a fulfilling retirement for you. So we have one question that's just come in. Do you have any advice on how to retire well by the age of 65? So that's kind of the goal. That's the magic number, I think, for a lot of people.
Right. Well, that's a good question. And keep in mind that everyone's situation is different. But I think, to be able to retire well, first and foremost, you have to have money.
Yeah, financially,
you have to be, well prepared for that. And if your goal is to retire by the age of 65, hopefully you've had your financial plan in place well before age 65. Hopefully, like me, I started saving for my retirement in my 20s. So, the longer you save, the more carefully you save, you'll be better prepared to retire when you reach the age of 65. So that's on the financial side, to be prepared by 65. But also on the emotional side too, that's where it all comes back to planning. And hopefully people start thinking about and planning for their retirement. I would say at least 5 years before, like start thinking about what you want to do. And is 65 really a realistic goal based on your own situation? As I said, everyone's is different, but start putting that plan into place. And if that's your goal, put steps into place so that you're able to reach that.
Yeah, because I mean, retiring well, it really comes down to your own lifestyle and what that means, and maybe even where you live. If you live in Toronto, it's probably going to be a different cost than if you live in a small town in Ontario somewhere.
Absolutely.
So you have to factor all those sort of things into your budget and your planning and your lifestyle for retirement. So one of the issues retirees often raise is having far too much free time on their hands and not knowing what to do with all that time. So like we were kind of saying, like having this structure and this plan, but yeah, what would you say to people to make sure that they have a plan in place?
Well, I would say have a plan in place. Again, it all goes back to start thinking about what you want to do in your retirement and taking a deep dive into all the things that you want to do, what you could do. Start thinking about, hobbies, activities, building in physical activity into your days. So it's really important that when you reach retirement, you have that structure in place. And what a lot of people do is when they first retire, they might go traveling to, we all see those pictures of retirement being like the long romantic walks on the beach.
Oh yeah.
Playing golf every day, or visiting with the grandchildren, and that's great, and that's sort of like the honeymoon phase of retirement. But then there might come a point where they want more. They need something more than just playing golf every weekend. So this is where having that more of that structure in place, thinking of things that you can do in your days and your weeks to fill your time in a meaningful way is so important. And I'm not saying that you have to have every second of the day filled, but just having some sort of structure in place is what really will get you out of bed in the morning.
Yeah, feel like you have that sort of purpose. That's
Right.
something that you're working on that's important.
Yeah. For example, a retiree might be like, okay, so Monday I'm, going out for lunch with some friends and doing a yoga class. Tuesday, I'm going to my pottery class. Wednesday, volunteering, like whatever the case may be, but it's just having maybe just one thing a day to look forward to, as I said, to get you up and going every day. Otherwise, what happens is you just start to feel kind of lost and bored. So.
Yeah, I feel like especially in Canada too, once wintertime hits, like we're all outside during like the nice days, but once wintertime hits, we tend to hibernate a little bit. And if you don't have that structure in place, I'm sure, yeah, you could just be locked up at home unless you have stuff that you're going to, things to do, all that sort of stuff.
So, knowing that about our winters, and so many Canadians go down south, just to get away from our winters. So if that's something that you want to do, build that into your plan and work with your financial advisor again to make sure that's part of your budget and your retirement income so you have enough money to do that.
Yeah, it really goes back to lifestyle. Like, how do you want to live your retirement other than just how you're living it now? What do you want to do? So it seems like some of those who develop hobbies that they're passionate about during their working lives, they often find the transition to retirement easier since they have an idea of what they want to do with their free time. Are there any particular hobbies you think that people approaching retirement should consider?
Hobbies tend to be so individual, and I would never want to tell anybody, oh, you should do this hobby. But the idea is going back to really thinking about what you want to do. You know, what interests you, and hobbies are great because there might be something that you've always wanted to do but couldn't because of the demands of work life and family. But now that you're retired, you have this time, so why not use this time to really pursue that hobby that you've wanted to do for all these years, you know? And if there's so many different options in terms of hobbies. You can write, or you can garden, or you can do woodworking or car restoration, whatever the case may be. Just use that time to figure it out and try it out. And it may not work for everybody. You may think you really want to do this, but with life changes, or it just may not be the right fit for you, and that's okay. Just try something else.
Yeah, something that fits with you and is something that you're passionate about. I know even for me, like my mom is she's a writer now, she's an artist, but her entire life she was a graphic designer. And it's that stage of your life where you can use it to do things that you've always wanted to do, but maybe you just haven't really had the time for. So spousal relationships, this is a key part of it too, right?
Yes,
I know something,
absolutely.
especially as you're counseling people on how to make that transition. In many cases, it's positive change since you get to spend more quality time with each other, but there's no denying that spending too much time with each other can cause some friction. So any thoughts on how they can kind of address this issue?
Absolutely. So the retirement might be the time in your marriage, for example, for the first time where you're actually able to spend time with each other. In a marriage, and while you're working, you're busy with work and you're going off to your job every day and you come together after. But now in retirement, you have that time to spend together. And while that may seem blissful and people are like, excited to spend all that time with their spouse now that they're in retirement, it may not be right for everybody. And this is again, it goes back to planning. And with your spouse, you should really figure out what it is that both of you want to do in your retirement. Spending 24/7 with your spouse may not be realistic, and you might drive each other nuts
a little bit too much time together.
There's this saying, I married you for better or worse. Better for worse, I didn't marry you to go for lunch every day. So you have to figure out how much time you want to spend with your spouse. Like even little things like waking up at the same time, like if you want to sleep in, the other spouse may be like, well, you're lazy, you're sleeping all the time. But these are little things that you have to talk about with your spouse. Or how much time do you want to spend together? Do you want to go for lunch every day? It's these little things that need to be figured out before the retirement actually happens, so that these resentments don't set in. And spouses are on the same page with each other, and that might take some time, and that's going to take some planning. But hopefully they'll get there, but the conversations may not be easy. This is where a coach can help. When I work with couples, it's just really having them talk and figure things out, and maybe allowing them to talk where they may not be able to do if it's just them alone. So
I'm sure even just like regular household chores
exactly,
can be difficult, because it's like one person always did, like, say for instance, the groceries, and the other person took out the garbage and this and that. And it's like, if you're going grocery shopping together all the time now, maybe you're like, oh no, that's not how I do things.
Right.
Now you're in my space. And
so definitely roles and responsibilities have to be explored. They may need to be redefined. There's so many things that for couples to think about when they retire together.
Yeah, definitely. And how do you feel about hobbies that retired couples do together? Do you think there's value in that, or it's better that they maintain separate hobbies?
Again, hobbies can be very individual, and everyone's different. There might be hobbies that couples actually do enjoy doing together, and they both enjoy doing it. But there might be, there's situations where one spouse might really want to do something, and he or she wants to do it alone.
Mm-hmm.
Or there might be a situation where the one spouse wants to do this particular hobby and wants the other spouse to do it with him or her, but the other one doesn't. So,
Mm-hmm.
you know, one thing with spouses and couples when I work with clients is communication is so key.
Mm-hmm.
And it sounds so easy, but you'd be surprised at how many couples don't communicate with each other and just can't get their points across to each other. So it all comes down to communicating, making that plan, being open with each other, and realizing that maybe what one spouse wants to do is not what the other one wants to do. But it's better to have those conversations early and figure that out before you get into retirement and get into, the years go on and resentment can occur,
Mm-hmm.
conflict and stress, and nobody wants that.
Yeah, and I would kind of think too, some people, especially if they've been together for a long time, they'd almost think like it's a given that we know how to spend time with each other, how to communicate, but maybe not so much, right?
No,
because
definitely not.
it's a different dynamic now
Mhm.
that you're going into, and if you haven't really communicated properly about your roles and responsibilities, about what you both want, then
Right.
yeah, you could be leading to
Yeah.
friction in there.
Yeah.
So I guess kind of on that note, do you think there's a difference with men versus women going into retirement, of what women want and of what men sort of want and how they approach retirement?
Absolutely. Generally, men tend to struggle a little bit more with retirement just because, and I say generally because their roles and responsibilities and their identity and their time has been taken up so much by their careers.
Mm-hmm.
Women tend to handle retirement a little bit better than men in the sense that they have stronger social networks. Women typically have, more roles within the family. So when they approach retirement, they're able to just, what am I trying to say? They're just able, the transition seems to be a little bit easier for them. Men have a harder time with their social networks, and a lot of their social networks were tied to their job.
Mm-hmm.
So once the career ends, a lot of men are feeling very lost. And, there's things that they can do as men and women, create those strong social networks ahead of retirement.
Yep.
There's men's groups out there that they could do. There's a lot of education, learning, like even some of the colleges, things like that. It's just important for men and women just to get out there more, figure out what they want to do, and just to have that time.
Yeah, because it is different. They're not exactly the same, so you have to kind of be aware of that as well too. We actually have one question that just came through the chat. So not everyone is retiring with a spouse in the picture. Any advice on retiring alone?
Right. Yeah, absolutely. So if you don't have a spouse in your life and you don't have that immediate support as you would having a spouse living with you, people who are, let's say, single or divorced or even widowed will experience a different retirement. And one thing that's really important for these people is, again, and I go back to this, is just having those strong social networks in place, having the family close by, keeping the family ties close, and having those social interactions in your calendar. It might be just going out for lunch or a walk with a friend, but having that social interaction is so important to fend off diseases or loneliness and social isolation, because those can lead to, as I said, depression. And
just make sure you have that routine of social interactions and you're engaged and you're doing stuff.
Yeah. So, and if I can continue on this, some other things to think about when you're retiring alone is even just think about your living situation. You might be living in this big house all by yourself, and as you age, that may not be so realistic anymore. You may not need all that space, or you may not be able to afford all that space anymore. So it's important to think of that as well. And just going back to the social interactions, as we age, sometimes our health is not always so friendly to us.
Yeah.
You know,
Yeah.
things come up. And if you're alone, it's so important to have, you know, friends close by or family close by in case there are those times that you need help. You know, should you have a health setback and you need a little bit of assistance in your home.
Yeah. Even neighbors close by,
Exactly.
like
Yeah.
if you're out in the country by yourself, yeah, depending on your age, you probably want people a little bit closer proximity to you.
Yeah.
So.
And just going your point about living in the country by yourself, at some point that may not be very realistic anymore. You know, while it's wonderful to live in the country away from the hustle and bustle of a city, you have to start thinking about how your life's going to change as you age. Healthcare is going to become so much more important as you age, and it's important to be close to good healthcare. If you're living at your cottage, the nearest hospital might be 2 hours away, and God forbid something should happen to you. You know, you don't want to be in that situation. So it's really important for people in retirement and as they age to think ahead. Like, what's my life? Where do I want to be in 10 years? Like, what do I want my life to look like? Where do I want to live? What makes the most sense for me to, where should I be living so that I have, you know, neighbors close by and healthcare close by. So
all those things. So you make sure you're
prepared.
Okay. Yeah, you're prepared. You're
Yeah.
taken care of. So I guess in cases where one spouse is retired, whereas the other is still working, do you see any potential issues rising from that scenario?
Yeah, I do. And we touched a little bit on this. There are a few things that can occur. So, for example, the spouse that is still working might start to feel a bit of resentment and anger towards the spouse that's retired if the retired spouse is not helping out with, let's say, the house chores or the upkeep of the house, and just expects the one who's working to continue doing those things. So again, it goes back to the roles and responsibilities. They have to be examined and redefined now that the situation has changed where one spouse is still working and the other is home all the time.
Yeah.
And the other thing that can happen is kind of now with the retired spouse who's home all the time, it might take him or her some time to get used to this new home life now that they're not at work. So, you know, they need to figure out what it is they want to do with their time. And they might start to feel some negative emotions towards the spouse that might be working because they want to spend more time with that spouse, but the other spouse is busy working. So,
yeah,
you know, there's so many emotions that can happen with couples and situations. So again, I want to stress just communicating with each other and figure that out. And, you know, spouses to be patient with each other and understanding and support each other during these times because they're not always easy.
Yeah, have a discussion with each other and know if the other person's working. I'm sure there's going to be days where they're just going to get home and they're just like, just want to be in my own space.
Yeah.
I need to just and if you're not working, maybe you're waiting for them to get home and you want to chat and stuff, and they're not in the same space as you. So
there's a lot that couples need to figure out and work on
and to talk through. We also had another question that just came through the chat. Should we have a plan B for our retirement plan, since we may encounter setbacks in our health, our lifestyle, and spouse?
Absolutely. Everybody should have a plan B, whether that means a plan B with your actual plan and sort of other things that, you know, might happen. Like, for example, let's say the death of a spouse. That's going to change your life dramatically, and that will change your retirement dramatically. So having a plan B for that and just being prepared, and that all goes back to also the financials. So work with your financial planner to have those contingencies in place. You know, make sure your will is in good order. You know, make sure you understand how your taxes will work. So
yeah, especially I think too on the financial side of it is, I often hear one spouse will take care of all the finances, but you want to make sure that both of you understand the finances incredibly well, so that if something should happen to one spouse, that you're not just kind of scrambling and trying to figure out where is all your money and how does everything work. So individuals who are single, divorced, widowed normally encounter a different retirement experience, like we're kind of saying. what kind of things do you think they should keep in mind as they approach retirement?
So we kind of touched on this already, and things that people should keep in mind if they're single, divorced, or widowed is first of all, everybody should have their financial plan in place. And that might look very different for a single person, for example, who's saving their money on their own, or divorced, or a widow who has received an inheritance. So it's important to have to work with your financial advisor just to make sure that all of that is in place, for your retirement. I talked about having your social networks, having a strong social network for those times, that you might need help with your health, just to keep active and relevant, to avoid the social isolation and the loneliness that happens so often in retirement. And then again, thinking about your living situation. If you're alone, what does that look like? How, with age, how might that change? You might need to downsize, as I said. Living in a condo might be more realistic, a smaller space if you're alone, or even into a retirement community. So again, there you've got a whole network of people around you to provide that support and that social interaction that's so important. As humans, we need that.
I feel like everyone needs that, no matter what age you are.
Yeah.
We all tend to live very isolated lives now, but if you can have community, I think it makes such a difference.
Yeah.
So is there anything else that you'd like to share with our audience? You feel like there's anything that we didn't cover today?
No, we covered a lot of stuff today, which is great. I just want to say a few things. And I've stressed this a lot today in this webinar, is just really planning ahead of time for your retirement. In real estate, how they say location, location, location. I think the new slogan for retirement should be plan, 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 because it's so important that people really start thinking about their retirement, how they want to spend those years, and putting that plan into place. And it doesn't have to be set in stone, obviously. Like, life changes, things come up, and revisit this plan every couple of years. Like, it's a good idea to write all this stuff out. I love making lists and writing things out. I love my whiteboard. And just write it down and review it and keep looking at it, keep changing it, because it'll change. And with different needs and wants and changes in your life, that plan's going to change too.
Yeah, just so you have some sort of direction instead of waiting till you're close enough and then feeling like you're not really prepared for it.
Yeah. And the other thing too is there seems to be a bit of a stigma out there that if you don't have your retirement all planned out, that there's something wrong with you. People are like, what do you mean you don't know what you're doing in retirement? What's wrong with you? Like, it's supposed to be the best time in your life. So people just tend to keep quiet and just tell people, yes, oh yeah, I have it figured out, when maybe they don't. And that's so unhealthy. So it's better to talk to somebody, talk with other people that that are retired, or talk with family members. Again, this is where a coach can help, just to talk about it, get things out in the open, and don't keep things in, because that's unhealthy. And as I said, that can lead to many different diseases, and nobody wants that. So
just to have those conversations with people, because I'm sure you find other people out there too. They're like, I know, going into retirement, not really sure what I'm doing here. And at least you won't feel like you're all alone.
Because you're not alone, and you shouldn't be alone. There's people out there that might have experienced the exact same thing as you. And so just to have those conversations with other people, and as I said, maybe with a coach, to try and figure things out and get on the right track, so that you can have a great retirement, and hopefully for many, many, many years.
Many years.
Yeah.
Fantastic. Well, thank you so much for joining us today. And thank you all for attending today's webinar. If you'd like to get in touch with Jennifer, you can visit her website at retirereadycanada.com. You can also check out her YouTube channel, Retire Ready Canada. And we'll also be sending out a link to this video so you can review it afterwards. And we welcome any feedback or suggestions on topics you'd like to see in the future. So thank you, everyone, and we'll see you again soon.